Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barn. Today we're going to be talking about Biden. It's just going down, and it seems like, I guess, there's not people willing to stay and go down with that ship and close their eyes and surrender, as the song goes. Jen Psaki is leaving MSNBC, and out of all the places she could have gone, she goes to the most absurd. MSNBC is the worst. So I guess she just is like, I'm a hack. I might as well be a hack, and to go to the hackiest place, at least like if you go to ABC or somewhere like that, they give you some more prestige or something. But MSNBC, that is just a clown show. So she's leaving. She's pinned to deal with them. And I guess it's good timing to get out, though people have been wooing her, I guess, for some time, and there's been talk of her trying to leave for some time, but this is a good timing because they tried to ignore inflation like it wasn't happening in the economy, tried to say this is just something that was temporary, and now, you know, they were bragging at first about the American Rescue Plan and how, like, we're uplifting all these people out of poverty. I'm like, how? Why? Like, how is that the talking point? And now they're like, oh yeah, there's going to be worldwide hunger, and we don't know what to do about it. And inflation is hitting households on an average of an extra $400 a month. So things aren't great in the country right now. But the priorities of the Democrats have gone from bad to perverse. Of course, yesterday was the Trans Visibility Day, which we raised flags, trans flags, with our taxpayer dollars, I guess. And our White House addressed that, and Biden told parents of trans children that gender affirming care is the way that you love and protect your child. And the White House also released what they believed was gender affirming care, which is, you know, things like chopping off your daughter's breasts, so and puberty blockers and other things. So this is a very absurd road to go down, and I would like if someone really pressed him on that graphic and what they put out. I don't think he'll be all there if you address him with these things. He just he's already at a decline, but I don't know. I'm torn between he's a meat puppet versus he's probably difficult to manage because he probably still wants his own like independence, but he's not well functioning. So it's probably a frustrating place to be in the White House. Thus, people leaving like Jen, but also Hunter Biden's laptop situation it's still, I guess, the same, but now the media, for whatever reason, has decided to acknowledge it, which has been frustrating for some people who have originally covered it and knew it was real the whole time. I haven't really brought up the fact that Washington Post and other places are now acknowledging that it's all verified. We knew it was real before. And I haven't talked much about it because it's not new news to me. It's not new news to you guys. It's not new news to me. And I guess I'm like, if Hunter was like indicted or something like that, that's new news. But I was talking to my sister about this last night, and she brought up Adam Housley, who's a journalist, and people attacked him viciously for reporting it. And so I wanted to just talk about that and touch on the media and their absurdity regarding this laptop situation. And people might say, well, but he's a private citizen. And that's what Jen would say as things started to heat up. They'd ask questions about it and be like, you guys said it was Russian information. disinformation. Like, he's a private citizen. I'd recommend you talk to his people. They just didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to address it. And so that could also explain why she's making a run for it, I'm sure, along with other things. But in those emails and stuff, it did talk about Hunter getting 10% for the big guy. So people were passing around this prediction from Rush Limbaugh, God rest his soul, from last, I think maybe December it was, when he's talking about Biden. And if they wanted to push him out of the way, they have ample evidence to make that happen, to make him step down at any time. And in the words of Rush, he serves at the pleasure of Obama, was his opinion. And if, Joe becomes too much of a liability, or they want him gone, they have enough stuff to be like, you know what, you're corrupted, and this isn't a good look, and you need to step down. So we'll see if something like that happens. But I thought it was an interesting prediction, so we're also going to go through that today. But before we jump into everything, please make sure you go to blackteennews.com, check out different articles that I've written. I had a conversation with on TikTok with a friend of mine, and he brought up that, he thinks abortion, for example, should be just something that's within the household. And he said household, he doesn't like how men get no say in it and stuff like that. And so, he's not for it, but a lot of people will have that opinion. Maybe they just, I don't feel it's polite to not do with something that's so nuanced, because women do it for so many different reasons. But I just laid out to him, and I did a reply. I said, no, there's lots of reasons why this already affects us. And I don't actually think pro-choice people would have that opinion that it should stay privately between the household, because our taxpayer dollars are very involved in this situation. And it's something that the Biden administration, the modern Democrats, are really, really pushing to have more taxpayer dollars directly funded. And then there's also our government pays for fetal tissue. Like there's a story that we paid for fetal tissue maybe it was like first, second trimester babies for humanized mice experiments. Fresh, never frozen, by the way. And then there's these biolabs and these pharmaceutical companies and so on that pay for this. And then our vice president protected Planned Parenthood when David DeLine found out that they were selling that stuff. So I just laid out some of those reasons on why we're all very involved and why it actually is not a private issue. And if there's so much money in circulation surrounding the abortion process itself, and also the selling of the remains, don't you see how it's this whole big machine is incentivizing, or is built to incentivize women, particularly women of color? Joe Biden's like, we need abortion for women of color. That's sus, especially considering the eugenics basis of it. Oh, okay, that really sus, but they're like, women of color really need abortion. And then you convince women that it's not safe, legal, and rare anymore. It's moved to abortion is love, abortion is compassion, and this is the way that you family plan. And they convince you to sell your baby remains, and then they purchase them, and then they do whatever in the name of science. So anyway, I laid out a couple of those things, but I sent them one of my articles where I go long into that. So you haven't read that article that I wrote about the moral harm of abortion, I recommend that you go read that article. Someone said, did you say humanized mice? I did unfortunately say humanized mice. Yes, our government did pay for fresh, never frozen fetal parts for humanized mice experiments. That is a true story, and I wish it was not. Again, you can go to blackteennews.com and read that article I wrote about why the societal harm of abortion, because it really goes beyond a woman and her choice between her and her doctor, which at least the man should be involved too, unless it was like a situation where she was sexually assaulted, then it's like, well, that person needs to be in jail. But other than that, it really does involve more people than just the two in the room. I mean, especially like the baby, it does involve the baby. If there was no baby, there'd be no need of abortion. So anyway, that's an example. One of the articles that I wrote, written a lot about Disney and the Don't Say Gay bill, and which is the Parental Rights and Education bill. Don't Say Gay is the propaganda name. So go ahead and check out what I have on the website. You guys can check out different merchandise that I have, like this Make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024 shirt, because we know the Biden administration wanted to pass out crack pipes. They tried to deny that, but their denial was dumb, and we know what's up. We know what's up. Also, like the My Money, My Business. I did create this shirt for the topic I just explained with abortion, and I was sick of people saying like, no, it's none of your business. I'm like, as long as my taxpayer dollars are involved, I think pretty much everything is my business if you want to confiscate my money to pay for it. So you guys can get that shirt. We have the You Are Not That Special shirt, Constitution's Glorious Liberty document. We got the black tea mug, and of course the cool goat hoodies and t-shirts, and I do have those in various colors. If you enjoy what I do here at Black Tea News, I encourage you to blacktnews.com/donate. Anything you guys can do to support, I appreciate. Whether it's $5, $10, so 100, whatever you guys want to do, I really appreciate that. That helps continue on the work that we have here. And you can also buy merchandise that also helps as well. And just sharing out the videos, sharing out the lives, encouraging other people to like black tea. I really appreciate it so much. I do not have a funny meme for you guys today. I was looking at different memes, but most of them that I was looking at and finding were stuff regarding to the trans stuff and kids in the classroom. And I could have been like, oh yeah, look at that. And I just didn't feel like it today because it's not funny. And I understand, like, and I'm not saying people shouldn't make their cartoons or memes or whatever about it. I think they should, but it's just a lot, and it's really sad right now. But I'm going to actually jump to this story since I brought it up. There was a woman who was a nurse out in Connecticut, and she's been suspended because she was online, and she just brought up that Connecticut is very liberal and was trying to warn people about their school system. And so she said that she actually has students who are on puberty blockers, and some of them have not told their parents, and the school is helping them hide it. And granted, she did share information about students, and that's why they're suspending them. But I read through the whole article, and this is the Daily Mail that reported it. But I can't find anything about the parents being like, oh, that's awful that they're hiding this information from us, that the school is conspiring. And I just thought that was wild. I thought that was totally wild. So the story is a Connecticut school nurse has been suspended over a Facebook post revealing that an 11-year-old at the school where she worked was on puberty blockers. Kathleen Cataford, who worked at the Richard K. Kinsella Magnet School in Hartford, was axed from her role Monday over the post, which was branded transphobic. There's kids on puberty blockers, and some people are like, oh, it's just so reversible. No, you can do irreversible damage to these kids, including making them sterile. And they're talking about kids who are like 11, young kids on puberty blockers. That is unusual. That is, someone said so wrong. Yes, it's completely wrong. And people are mad at her for pointing it out and warning other parents, because this person is very conservative. You go through their content, it seems like they're pretty darn conservative. Warning other people about this school district in this state, because why would you want to put your kids in a school like that where they actively hide information and the staff hides information from parents? Please don't. People need to stop trying to act like the Florida bill isn't necessary. Parental Rights and Education bill, every Republican, if they were wise, even if there's a governor like in Michigan who would veto it, they need to push legislation like this and dare them to veto it. And that'll be the headlines and the things we take to the polls. And it's not just a gimmick. I did just describe it as like a political gimmick, and so no, but it's necessary. And honestly, The bill, if you read the bill, which is, again, it's like 7 pages long, it's very neutral, and it's very, it doesn't, in my opinion, go far enough. You should not be talking about gender identity at all in school. Not instruction for it. You can't change your gender. You can't. It was like, what's a construct? You just have to, and whoever identifies. If someone says they identified as Spider-Man, we're not going to have a lesson plan about it. So you go to school to learn about math, science, history. You might have a psychology class, and there you might learn about a disorder. So maybe that's an appropriate place, but just like as if it's just a natural occurrence. No. So they just had K through 3. The bill's so not controversial, but the White House thinks it's disgusting. Psaki said it was disgusting. Biden's talked about it. He mentioned all these bills that have come up yesterday in a speech, and I played it yesterday. They had the current Jeopardy champion at the White House yesterday, who's a trans woman. And this is the highest paid, they're referring to this person as the highest paid woman now, I guess. The highest paid winner in Jeopardy history for a woman is a man. That's absurd, but that's where they're going with this. They're raising the flags and so on. And also telling parents with trans children the way to love and care for them is to have gender affirming stuff, which includes, according to this graphic that they put out, the White House, puberty blockers, hormones, surgery. So this nurse puts it out there that these schools are doing that, and she gets a spin, and people are mad because it's trans freaking phobic. Okay. Writing on a local moms group in response to the request for local school recommendations. Again, it's a moms group. The 77-year-old said, investigate the school system curriculum. CT is very socially liberal, gender confused state, the post read. It continued, as a public school nurse, I have an 11-year-old student on puberty blockers and a dozen identifying as non-binary, all but 2 keeping this as a secret from their parents with the help of teachers, SSW social workers, and school administration. Teachers and social workers are spending 37.5 hours a week influencing our children, not necessarily teaching our children what you think is being taught. Cataford went on to claim that children are indoctrinated to this confusion in kindergarten. So somebody reported her when they found this post. The school acted swiftly, and then they ended up suspending this woman. And I went through this. There's more to read in this article, but I'm probably not gonna read the rest of it. But not to you guys, and you can go look it up. But I think I just shared it on Facebook. But I don't see anyone saying, "Oh yeah, I was glad she warned us," or any parents like, "Oh gosh, I did not know my child was on puberty blockers. I'm glad that I know." Or someone saying, "Yeah, it's really bad to do that, to hide that kind of information from parents." Puberty blockers. That's insane. That's insane. It makes me so upset because, and I was heated when Rachel Levin was being going through confirmation hearings, and that's our assistant health secretary under Xavier Becerra, who has no experience in the public health sector, but he did sue some nuns under the Trump administration, or he sued the Trump administration who was protecting the nuns, to get it more technical. People don't like when you say he didn't sue the nuns. Yes, he did. He sued the Trump administration who was protecting the nuns. Okay. So that kind of work gets you rewarded, right? So he's the health secretary, and the assistant health secretary is Rachel Levin. someone who should not have been put in that position, especially because while Levin was over in Pennsylvania, they had the COVID policy with the nursing homes and the elderly. They knew it was bad because he got his mom out. So, but diversity hire. And when Rand Paul was questioning Levin about puberty blockers, and do you think it's okay to give puberty blockers, even knowing that it can sterilize children? Levin was like, well, that's a very interesting question, and it's a very nuanced field, and I look forward, if I am confirmed, to coming to your office and talking about that. So you're not going to answer this man's question because you don't feel that you have to answer this man's question before you get confirmed. And once you have what you want, why do you need to go to his office to explain your views? You're under the umbrella of the executive branch now. You got what you wanted. You have that power. So it made me so angry because the Democrats were going to vote for Levin. Insane enough that it is, they did. But you had bipartisan support. I'm pretty sure it's Murkowski and Collins who crossed the aisle. And they're gonna, I think it's at least Collins who said they're gonna cross the aisle for Ketanji Brown Jackson. But I was heated about the Levin thing, and I did write an article about that too. If you want to go back down memory lane and go to blacktnews.com, and the article is about cowardly Republicans. And I was complaining about McConnell not having his people together and putting some of these wackadoodles through, because at the very least, because it's 50-50 and they can break the tie with Kamala Harris, but at least make them do that. At least make them own that. Now it was only like 2 Republicans, granted, but that's still too many. That answer was unacceptable. And now the White House is pushing this gender affirming care. I've seen videos of activists saying, just chop off your breasts. It's not a big deal. Like, you can go have surgery and have them add it back on. Like, what? I just can't imagine that insanity. I can't imagine that insanity. So this is what's going on in the schools. I'm, and they're mad at the nurse. And granted, that was like, she didn't reveal any students' names. And people still thought that was TMI, but maybe they're just really concerned and upset that their whole crazy world of secrecy has been now let out in the public. And if they were trying to hush house stuff, well, guess what? The whole world knows about, not the whole world, but you know, it's going around in these conservative circles, and I talked about it, and you guys can talk about it too. But this is the crazy world that we live in now. My gosh. I just can't imagine someone abusing my child like that secretly. And I wouldn't be okay with it. I would try me not. Oh my, that's all I got to say. Let's go on to Biden. Although this is like the fruits of his labor. Things are really bad for him right now. And things are coming more into light with the Hunter Biden laptop story. Again, nothing is new, like as far as what we know about it. I did think it was interesting the other day. People started pointing out that Hunter did help to get funding for biolabs in Ukraine. And there were stories about the biolabs in Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard mentioned them, and Mitt Romney was like, you traitor. And I'm just like, but there are biolabs. And then the White House did mention there are biolabs, and they were concerned about Russians hitting the biolabs. But the CDC, I don't know if it was the CDC, World Health Organization probably was instructing them to get rid of their more dangerous sort of things. And allegedly they were on track in doing that. but there's a lot of sticky hands in the situation with Ukraine, and Washington Post and New York Times and other outlets are acknowledging that the laptop has been verified and real, and the contents of it are also real. Now, granted, when the story first came out, you're like, Rudy Giuliani's like, I don't know, traveling and doing stuff, and he has some kind of laptop, and it was left at a repair shop. It did sound a little sketchy at first. Just kind of listening to it, I'm like, that sounds like weird. Things start to make more sense, though, once you realize that Hunter Biden is a crackhead. They don't always do things that make sense. And I think there's been a total of 3 laptops that he's lost. But it was always peculiar to me how they were just trying to call it Russian disinformation, and how they were trying to pretend that it wasn't real, or it didn't matter. But mostly they were calling it disinformation, whatever. And I'm like, they have videos of him like smoking crack pipes in tubs. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's obviously true content on here. And then I remember one day someone pointed out that there's an email between, I guess it was Hunter and Frank Lutz, and I think it was some kind of email regarding maybe some kind of consulting or something. And they're like, ooh, Frank Lutz, look good. I didn't know, like he was playing both sides or something. And Frank like responded to it and just like downplayed it. And he's got to make money, whatever. But I'm like, he didn't say that this wasn't real. So I'm like, doesn't this help verify that this is real? And then you had one of Hunter's like former like associates who did the press conference with Trump, kind of reminiscent of the press conference when Trump brought in, Bill's accusers back in the day in 2016, and then just laid out Hunter Biden and the way things worked and the 10% for the big guy. So people who try to say like, well, this is all just about a Hunter, like, no, it's about him using his influence to to get money, and apparently Biden was getting a cut. And people reported it a little bit like, or Hunter's dealings with Burisma and stuff a little bit, but they didn't want to touch the laptop. Jack Posobiec kept claiming that he would send it to Jake Tapper and other people because he had access to it, and I don't think he ever really got response. And people, NPR is like, we're not covering it because we want to cover real things. So just cancel NPR, by the way. But it was always obviously true. And even when the White House was pressed about it, there was never like outright denial that I saw about it. And the spokespeople would try to like circle back to you kind of in the Jen Psaki sort of way. And dodge like Matrix bullet time kind of stuff. But never ever really like, oh, this is absolutely false. I don't know where that picture of my son smoking a crack pipe came from. So the media was very, very maliciously putting all this to the side because they wanted their guy to win. And at the end of the day, I think they still would have probably did the same thing because journalistic integrity doesn't really matter to them. Now, if this was like earlier in the Democrat primaries where they could have uplifted someone else to possibly still take the reins and win, then yeah, maybe they would have let that get out and let Biden sink then. But when it was like the Democrats made the whole nation come to a grinding halt during COVID, killed people's dreams, killed people's businesses, muzzled your children, all to help stop Trump, right? That's what it largely was, at least in this country, because we didn't follow the science. We just didn't. As a matter of fact, this clip of Fauci's going on around, so I'm just going to play it for you since I brought
vaccination. That's a very, very small minority of it, and unfortunately, that appears to be the case with you.
But she's had the flu for 14 days. Should she get a flu shot?
Well, no. If she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be, because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
And
so
she should not get it?
If she really has the flu, she definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. If she really has the flu,
she should not get it again.
No, she doesn't need it because it's the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
And people with like common sense who understand how things work were aware of that, but they just constantly pushed anti-science crap. When the Great Barrington Declaration came out, I think that was sometime like later in 2020, where it was like people need to go on with their life as normally as possible. We need to protect the elderly, but we can't just like close down society. Fauci and Collins and other people tried to shut that down, and they're like, oh, we gotta have somebody write something about, or is there gonna be something to like come against this article here, or this. And I think Wired and other folks started to write things trashing it, but they have the right approach because lockdowns, masks, all that stuff did not have a great impact at all with the pandemic. Very little, if very, very little. I won't say none at all, but very, very little. Not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. So here we are. Here we are. They did all that stuff to defeat Trump. So if they knew this thing was real, and they always knew that it was real, they just didn't. And if they didn't think it was real, it's because they just lied to themselves, and it wasn't out of like critical thinking or real investigating. But I think they would have did the same thing over again because they didn't want Trump to win. They didn't want Trump to win. Now, seeing how bad things are right now, would they still done the same thing? I think so, because they hated that man that much. And there's various reasons to it. And I'm starting to think some of them are a little more insidious, but I'll mention that another day. I'm not willing to say that theory yet. But here's CNN finally acknowledging really how bad things are for Biden's son, and this should come back and bite Biden as well.
Evan, just lay out your reporting here, because this is very, very bad for the president's son.
It is, and it's an investigation, as you pointed out, going back to 2018, and right now, prosecutors in Delaware are focusing on a number of things, including whether Hunter Biden and some of his business associates violated laws, including tax and money laundering laws and foreign lobbying laws. A lot of this has to do with Hunter Biden's time working with this company called Burisma, an energy company in Ukraine. He was getting paid as much as $50,000 a month for that company during a time that Joe Biden, his father, was vice president, was in charge of handling Ukraine issues for the Obama administration. And that, of course, raised questions of a conflict. And so what we know is this investigation, for a while, it has been going on, and it seemed to not a lot was going on until recently. A lot of activity has picked up. We know witnesses have gone in to talk to the grand jury in Delaware. We know of witnesses who are going in to talk to investigators in the next few weeks. So we know that there's a lot of activity now picking up. He's not been charged. He says that Hunter Biden says that he committed no wrongdoing, and that he says at the end of this, he believes he'll be cleared. But obviously, as you pointed out, this is a political mess for the sitting president to have his son being investigated by the Justice Department, his own Justice Department.
Yeah, so obviously very bad. And there in the emails and stuff, there was talk about 10% for the big man, and then Hunter's like former associate or whatever also confirmed that that's how things went as well. So if that's the case, because Biden does report all of his money, that means there's some money somewhere, or it's in some kind of assets or something that haven't been reported. So more of this stuff could get back to Biden, but it does speak to like if they're buying his son, what did they get in return, or what were they expecting in return? So really shady, sleazy stuff. And again, we all knew this. This isn't new to us, but they're just choosing to acknowledge it now. So I brought this up to my sister the other night, and she follows Adam Housley, who's a journalist, and he's married to Tamara Mowry, sister. She's one of the twins. And he just brought up his frustration about how people are finally now acknowledging that it was real. And so here's a tweet here. I interviewed John Paul very early on and was called a Trumpster, a liar. My wife was attacked. And it was all true. The social media outlets and major media outlets should be ashamed. They pushed the narrative that anyone who reported such was making it up. And my sister was following him through all this time, and people were attacking his wife. They were saying that's not the twin we acknowledge. As in, Black people were saying this about Tamara. Not just because of who she's married, because of who she's married to and what the kind of stuff that he was saying. So they didn't want to acknowledge her Blackness. It's insane the lengths that people will go to discredit you because you're saying something that's true, something that's real. And if it wasn't a big deal, there's people who are gaslighting you saying it's not a big deal, it's just the president's son. If it wasn't a big deal, you wouldn't have had to hide it. If it wasn't a big deal, you wouldn't have had to say it was Russian disinformation. You wouldn't have had to malign people like him and then attack his wife for asking questions about something that's true. There was a poll that came out sometime after the election that if people had known about the Hunter Biden laptop, people wouldn't have voted for him. And I think by the numbers, it was probably like enough to change the fate of the election. But obviously, people thought it was enough for people to change the fate of the election in 2020. Because if you look at the popular vote, if you believe those numbers anyway, a lot of people don't. That's not how you conclude an election or whatever. If you look state by state in the areas where they lost, that is a much closer race. That is a much closer race. When people ask about the media always tries to kind of get Trump supporters and stuff talking about, do you believe the election was stolen? Because they want to paint you as a wackadoodle if you believe that. And I always put it this way, feel free to repeat this. Hopefully I get to tell the president this on Saturday. He likes it. I say, like, do you believe he legitimately lost the election? I say, I believe that he legitimately lost a rigged election. He legitimately lost a rigged election. And you know what? After the election, New York Times put out an article about how they fortified the election. And I think a lot of times when Trump was talking in 2016 about how things were unfair in the election, I don't think he maybe thought there was going to be a lot of cheating or something like that. I think he thought stories like this, or how the media was painting him in such an unfair light. And they were, but people were willing to destroy lives and businesses. And people did die, and especially in the nursing homes. We just did so much wrong. And then there's so many repercussions now with the mental health of young people, just mental health in general. But there's a crisis right now when young people, alcoholism went up, childhood development, even people speaking, like learning how to speak is been slowed down because the children need to see your mouth moving to learn words and start speaking. Kids who are behind in school, who were just deprived of human affection all this time, people who radically declined in hospitals because they couldn't be with their loved ones, or people who declined radically in nursing homes because you wouldn't allow them to see their friends and their family. All that wasn't just out of like public concern for the pandemic, because we faced stuff before. This was insane. And a lot of it had such a political agenda. And you can't say that it didn't, because Newsom and I think Lightfoot and Cuomo, like there's people admitting like, oh, we can use this to our, advantage. And maybe they didn't mean it to come out as sinisterly as it did, but obviously there was an agenda. Especially like with the mail-in voting stuff. Especially like with the mail-in vote. And I'm not saying that because I'm saying people stuff ballots. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a war for information and war for your mind. And the more people who they could just have berate and demean into voting, talking about voter intimidation, people were intimidated to vote a certain way. People were intimidated. The sort of local ads that came on, like in my house, like on the Urban Channel, I was like, I feel like they just threatened me. I've talked about it before. There was like a PAC that put out something that said, people are going to be able to look up and see how you voted, or see if you voted or not. And they play like 2 back-to-back. And no, they can't look up and see exactly who you voted for. But if you didn't know that and how the commercials were structured, you would think that. And they'd even send out like mailers to people that said, or mail that said the same thing. And people who are maybe a little more unsavvy with it would have been like, oh, shoot, people are going to be able to see the reason why Trump won. And people were berated for 4 years for voting for Trump. So maybe people who wouldn't really have cared before or gone out that extra mile are like, man, people are going to be able to see if I was part of the problem here. And then after they played those 2 commercials, they played a Gary Peters commercial. He ran against John James. And they ran a Biden commercial. And they played the same 2 ads again. And then they played the commercials for Biden and Gary Peters again. But after seeing it, I was disturbed. And I said, rewind that back. I got to record that. I was totally disturbed. And then they have such a huge access to people through the media and the lies that they tell, and then also social media as well, that they just have a bigger access pool to low information voters. So as long as people keep talking about how like Colorado is so left, it gets keeping worse, and it's going to continuously probably be that way until people can like bridge a media gap and really change the culture there. But mail's going to be a problem. Mail's going to be a problem. And then there's also, concerns about what people can do, like with ballot harvesting and other stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. We got a media problem. We got to work through this huge media gap. That's why I do what I do. But I think that's the biggest problem. Voter fraud's always an issue, and there's always voter fraud, but they were like, get your ballot turned in, get your ballot turned in, get your ballot turned in. Like, you don't want them to watch the debates? You don't want them to hear all what the candidates have to say? Though those debates didn't really help Trump. The final one did. But it was really late. A lot of people had voted by then. Even when they were doing the confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett, they were saying people have already voted. Well, don't you look foolish for voting early? We have an election day. It's not a week. It's not a year. It's not several months. I'm not for early voting. I've talked about that before. But anyway, what they've done to win is just ridiculous. I want to play this video from Rush Limbaugh talking about his theory about when they might be ready to get rid of Biden and how they'd have everything that they needed on him. I think it's interesting.
Until, I'm going to tell you, folks, I think we're seeing enough information on the Bidens now to safely say that Biden will serve at the pleasure of Barack Obama. If Obama gives the green light to Democrats to take Biden out, there will be ample evidence that Biden has lied about his knowledge. His family was selling his name and office with his permission. And if that's in fact the case, then there's likely unreported money that will be found. The fake news media will temporarily become hard news media if the decision is made that Biden has to step down. Until that time, they will be covering for Biden. They'll be making excuses for Biden. They'll be ignoring all the negatives. You wait and see, and then watch what happens to their ratings when that happens.
So that was a prediction for Rush. I wonder if it'll come true. Because it does make you question why now are they sort of acknowledging this. Now, I don't think Hunter is probably going to be charged, not because I don't think he's done something. He's obviously done something wrong. Has he done something criminal? That I don't know. Definitely something wrong. Definitely immoral, especially in a political sense, and it's something that should have been enough to stop Biden from getting elected, but that's why they didn't want to share it. He's just the messiest, messiest child you can possibly have. It's so trailer park, and I'm sorry if that offends people who live in trailer parks. And I used to live in my mom didn't like us calling it trailer park, manufactured home community. But it's just like, he's such a trashy. He's so trashy. Living in the White House. This family. It's bizarre. But no, I don't really think he'll end up being charged, because I just think that's how the world works, honestly. But do I think that this could be enough for them to step down, considering that Biden is declining anyway? I think so. But maybe there's something that could push him to step down, and then on top of his declining, and we can say it's because of your health or whatever, push him out in whatever kind of way. But the only issue is that so many people dislike Kamala. That doesn't mean they can't have Kamala kind of get the program and push whatever new things that they want. But it's just a wreck. It's just a wreck. I'm still baffled. Well, I'm not baffled. I have a theory that they picked Kamala and positioned Joe because in the long run, and he even said he was like a placeholder himself. If they had lost to Trump, they were pawns worth sacrificing in the game, I think. I think there's other brighter stars who, they had so many people running, but I guess not really a lot of people with a lot of punch and pack and power, because it ended up with those two, right? But I think those were the ones worth sacrificing in case Trump was still an unstoppable force. They didn't want to sacrifice someone's good future could maybe run down the line. And when Biden pledged to have a black or a person of color who was a woman be his VP, at first he just said it had to be a woman. And then he did so many gaffes that people said it has to be a black woman. Like Charlemagne and other people signed on to a letter. And then it was going to be black woman. There were other choices that still would have been bad, but I think still better than Kamala. Kamala is just awful. And there's been people who've left Kamala and gone to other places, and reports about how just kind of terrible she is personally. And she was mad at that cover, I think it was Vogue, when she had the Chucks on. Would they treat any other world leaders this way? It's did you put those shoes on your feet, ma'am? Yeah, so she's just the worst. So I think that will also play into what happens next. But I think maybe they are also hoping that if he leaves and she's the president, then maybe people will be like, oh, we have a woman now, and maybe her points will go up or something. It's just a hot mess all around for them. Just absolutely all around. Last thing I want to mention before I go is that all week long, pretty much there's been this story. And if you've been on Twitter, or I'm sure if you were on CNN or other place, they probably mentioned it. Business Insider and other people wrote stories about this, but how there were 7 minutes, I think it was, missing from the call logs at the White House. And what did Trump know? What did Trump say? The time that's missing. He planned an entire, invasion of the United States during the missing phone logs. What did he say? This insurrection, treason, Trump, blah, blah, blah. So that story is a bust, in case you didn't know. CNN breaking: the 6 pages of White House switchboard logs for the 1/6, January 6th, are complete, based on an official review of the White House records. according to a source familiar with the matter. There are no missing pages, and the 7-hour gap is likely explained by the use of White House landlines and cell phones link. That said, January 6th committee still wants to know what Trump was doing and not doing during the attack and who he was talking to. People were crazy about it. I saw the story and I was like, were people talking about it? I didn't even really engage. I'm like, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation to this. And I just let it play out. And I learned to just do that in the Trump era because the media would come out so fast with the story and it would just be bunk in a few days, or they'd say something about what Trump said. And then you go look at what he said and it's like, oh, that's not what he said at all, or that's not what he meant at all. And so I'd still recommend doing that with stuff that comes out regarding Trump, because the media just likes to lie, and they like to just sensationalize these stories. But yeah, in case you heard that, that's fake news. More fake news, just hysteria. But I'm sure not as many people are aware of the correction and the reveal than the hysteria that was happening when it was trending like a few days ago. It like continuously, I think. So that's our world. That's what it is. All right, thank you guys so much for watching today. I do want to thank Brighter Mission Pack because I was in their studio today. If I said something that triggered you, no one cares. But it doesn't like they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices, and I do appreciate always being able to be in the studio. So they do great work. Really appreciate Brighter Mission Pack. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I've written. Please check out different merch like the goat hoodies and goat t-shirts. I do have those in different colors. But man, the white really pops well, but I understand people have kids and stuff. So I made them in color as well. I have the Defeat Joe Biden, Denounce White Supremacy, with all the list of racist stuff that Biden has done on the back. Not all of it, but there's a good list there. I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. I really like that shirt. And I do have a couple of gender stuff that I created as well. Like the Club XX lifetime membership, XX woman, and these cool skirts with the gender signs and XX chromosomes and other stuff like that. That's really cute. And I do also have a dress as well. So you guys can check that stuff out at blacktnews.com. Hit the merchandise button. Also, I do write books as Disney and other stuff is getting really, really woke with their content. I do encourage people to actively support other sort of content, and I've created content and been doing that for a very long time. And my dream is to have a Super Kid movie. It always has been. But, go ahead and at least buy the book for you and your kids first. It's about a boy who has an overactive imagination. He believes there's superpowers. It's not really. He teams up with a classmate named Kiara who goes along with it because she just super, super likes him. And she becomes Princess Lady Diva because she had to be all three. And then they help out this other kid in their neighborhood named Lee. And so he thinks it's all real. So he becomes Stickman after vigorous training from them. He's kind of becomes like the Batman of their group. And they just go around the community doing really good. And in the second book, there's this bully in the community, someone who's really seems like too big and stuff for Felix to really defeat. And so he kind of comes with this big question, like, what do you do when you face an impossible battle? So it's a really, really good series. And there's more to come. So go ahead and go to my book website is ninjadoespublishing.com. But if you go to blacktnews.com, there's a merchandise button. On the merchandise page, there's a banner and it'll take you to the website. But if you look up Christina Elbar on Amazon, all my stuff is there on Kindle Unlimited. If you have that, as long as you have the subscription, you can pay for books. And I promise you, as long as you read and you go through the pages, I will get paid. And you can do them paperback. So go ahead and check out Super Kid and other books as well. I write for children to young, I guess new adult rather. And I have historical fiction, fantasy books, and other stuff as well. So go ahead and check out what I have, also nonfiction. So got lots of stuff. I encourage you to check it out. I will not be streaming tomorrow night from my TikToks because I will be at the Trump rally tomorrow, and it should be a lot of fun. We will be singing the national anthem. I do want to thank Angelique she was at an event I was at last night, and I did sing. So she said I did beautiful. So I thank you very much for your compliments, and pray for me. It's, you know, I've sung the national anthem quite a few times on big stages, including at Trump rallies and a Pence rally as well. And it's just a song that you want to do justice to. And if you feel that you don't do a good job, you know, it's going to live with you forever. So no pressure. I'll see you guys on Monday. God bless.